Do you have undiagnosed ADHD? Do you have an itch that only Amen Breaks can scratch? Did you go see Radiohead live and wonder why the opener was playing good music? Well, do I have the genre for you? Digital hardcore recordings. As a full-time playlist curator and consultant, it is my job to explore every conceivable genre and only pull the best from the best. The playlist we will be exploring is Hard, by me, of course. We will start with the history, go into some genre-defining characteristics, and talk about my personal journey with these jams. But first, what is digital hardcore? Like a lot of you, I grew up in the dubstep era of electronic music. This genre was classified by its seizure-inducing drops, its overly processed signals to give a texture of its own. It was criticized for its lack of song structure and its aggressive style. To the old techno fan, dubstep just kind of sounds like noise. Simply compare Lady Science to Bangarang. Much like dubstep, digital hardcore was criticized for a lot of the same attributes. Digital hardcore pushed the technology to the limit at its time, and it was characterized by its intense breaks, punishing song structure, and was even more hostile to the listener. And much like dubstep, digital hardcore is kind of having a resurgence nowadays. Artists such as Blade, Death Grips, and Machine Girl have all taken influences from the digital hardcore scene and have contemporized them. So why is digital hardcore still popular? Let's finally get into some definitions. Digital hardcore. Alright, according to Shannon Nico Shabrek of Bandcamp.com, quote, as its name implies, digital hardcore is the synapse-snapping, tech-friendly offspring of hardcore's aggro parentage, a sonic problem child that breaks genre boundaries and eardrums with glee. By shoving choice components of composition, rhythm, volume, timbre into their extremes, digital hardcore turns sound into weaponry, and its primary casualty is convention. Damn, that's a lot of alliteration. And she really thought she did something there, huh? Okay, let's break it down. It should be very, very simple. It's techno fused with hardcore punk. That's it. We'll talk about the different subgenres and genres, but it's just techno blast beats. That's all you really need to know. This is the quintessential breakbeat used in DHR and its corollary subgenre, breakcore. Now you might be asking yourself, Peter, breakcore is not a subgenre of DHR. DHR isn't even a genre. It's a record label. And yeah, you'd be correct. They're both. Now take your gold star and your Venetian snares and go to the Capri Sun corner, all right? Don't bother me. What's important to know about the Amen break is who invented it. Gregory C. Coleman was the drummer of the Winstons, a funk and soul band. The break made its debut on the track Amen Brother in 1969. This is, if not, the most influential sample in all of electronic music, being the forefather to genres like breakbeat, drum and bass, breakcore, and even digital hardcore. Unfortunately, only recently has Coleman been accredited for his contribution to electronic music. He died in 2006 without a home and was brutalized by the effects of poverty. I'll discuss the ethical and financial implications of sampling later on, but now that we have some definitions out of the way, let's take a short history lesson. All right, to some of you like zillennials and people younger than 24, you don't know what the Cold War is. So I'm not going to explain it, but I'm gonna explain a little bit of it. But if you don't know what the Cold War is, just like look it up, dog. But anyway, leading into the Cold War, Berlin was broken up in two, West and East Berlin. The Berlin Wall was constructed in 1961 by Soviet-controlled East Berlin to restrict citizens from escaping to the Western-controlled West Berlin. The Berlin Wall was finally torn down on November 9th, 1989. Alexander Wilke Steinhoff, there's going to be a lot of German names in here, and I'm going to try my best, but give me a break, okay? Was born on May 2nd, 1972 in Charlottenburg, West Berlin. Alex came from a long line of political activists, his father being a working class activist and his grandfather dying in a Nazi concentration camp for his radical activism. Alex was always extremely political, starting a punk band at age 12 named Die Kinder. However, he didn't find his niche until he started experimenting with electronic instruments and attending underground raves in East Berlin. Alex began sampling artists such as the Winstons, other funk and soul bands, and political speeches. Alex took the moniker of Alec Empire and started the band Atari Teenage Riot with Hanin Elias and Carl Crack. Born May 31st, 1972, Hanin Elias came from a Syrian father and a German mother and grew up in both Syria and Western Germany. At age 15, she ran away from home and started living in squats and kind of just went from house to house with her punk friends, creating weird, noisy tapes and developing her unique vocals and making like these psychedelic noise projects out on the street. And even during this time, Elias was camping near the Berlin Wall, protesting the Autobahn, and then German police came out and started tear gassing them and, started climbing the Berlin Wall, and is probably one of, if not the only case, of somebody actually escaping from West Berlin to East Berlin. So she said they were very nice, and they greeted her with coffee and like blankets and stuff, so... There you go. You wish you had this punk backstory. God damn. Anyway. So, through a mutual friend, she met Alec Empire, and they started talking about music and noticing that they had a lot of similarities with their politics and also what kind of weird shit that they were coming up with. And so Alec recruited Hanin Elias, and Hanin just started a band with this guy. Carl Crack, originally named Carl Bohm, was born on May 5th, 1971 in Swaziland. He was engrossed in the digital punk scene, and Alec recruited him to be the MC for his band. Carl added a different perspective, growing up in both Swaziland and Western Germany, and often discussing the effects of racism within Western Germany. To really understand DHR is to understand Alec Empire, Hanin Elias, and Carl Crack. And what you need to know about them is, damn, are they edgy. Like, whoo, they are hella edgy. I'm talking like listening to Murder on My Mind in an Xbox Live like lobby. I'm talking like listening to Law Dispute with the Genius lyrics pulled up. I'm talking about writing in a diary and not calling it a diary. I'm talking about instead of F for F, it's S for S, if you know what I mean. These people were contrarians, and let me tell you, they didn't play by the rules. This cannot be better displayed than with their contract with Phonogram. ATR signed with Phonogram to put out a full-length album. They were given a signing bonus, which they immediately took to invest in their own record label, Digital Hardcore Recordings. After a couple of singles and an EP, Phonogram cut the deal off. And in 1995, we got the first record from DHR. Digital Hardcore! Okay, good shit. All right, like just taking money that you were given to like survive and just making your own thing is like just kind of crazy. It's like almost like being laid off from your job and using all the severance that they gave you to just kind of start a YouTube channel, hopefully, so you don't have to work for anybody again, so you can just be yourself and not have to pretend to be someone that you're not and only work and jobs that you hate. And let's move on. After this stint with Phonogram, ATR was dead set on expanding their sound, enlisting producers such as Sonic Subjunkies, DJ Bleed, Christoph de Babylon, Ekater, and Shizu. Is it Shizu? Or is it Shitsu? Is that the joke? Is it Shitsu? Anyway, they released several albums in the coming years. The record label would branch out into several other more segmented record labels, and the original one is still going on to this day, only having a hiatus in 2007 and being revitalized in 2010. However, Atari Teenage Riot would break up in 2001 due to Carl Crack being found dead in his apartment. Throughout Boehm's life, he suffered psychotic attacks and struggles with drug abuse. It was right after the release of ATR's 60-second Wipeout and Crack's solo release, Black Ark. Alec Empire would continue to release much more music and do a lot of collaborations with other artists, while Hanin Elias would start her own record label, Fatal Recordings. Okay, so we got hyper-political anarchist techno in the heart of a German dungeon nightclub, burgeoning from a scene that had a very strict no politics on the dance floor policy. And you wonder why this is my favorite genre of music. In order to understand the appeal and impact of a DHR record, let's break down the breakdowns that have broken down all breakdowns. The compilation Harder Than the Rest, starting with this track, Signe Says. Signe. And also, why the are we mowing the lawn right now? What? Why? There's like 5 square feet of grass. Well, we have some ambient noise. We can also talk about the subgenre ambient noise. Oh. He didn't like that. We don't want to talk about like that Merzbow and Alessandro Cortini split. That collaboration was like really bad. I don't know about you guys, but I did not like Merzbow and Alessandro Cortini together. All right, so it's actually been a while since I've listened to this song, so let's check it out. Digital hardcore! Oh my god. Fuck. That's hard. It's just so hard. Fuck, that's just so hard. All right, let's take a look at one of my favorite tracks of all time, Sweat by Shitsu. Fuck. Jury's still out on that one. I'm gonna skip a little bit. Okay. Sounds like he's just dropping a cymbal.
You ever been kissed by a girl like this?
Fuck! That's even harder! Alright, let's finish with our analysis with Seventh Rest by Christoph de Babylon.
On each night of the week.
7 days in a week. Damn, that was hard, but like scary. Whew. All right, cool. Well, that's my analysis done. So let's move on. Now I know what you're thinking. Peter, you didn't do any analysis, but honestly, that's kind of the point. The music was made with the intention of making the listener only able to focus on the song. You are transported into a digital hellscape that reflects the effects of authoritarianism and consumerism. It is meant to elicit a visceral response from the listener that may shed light on their own feelings of overwhelming chaos and anxiety that comes with political turmoil. So there. I don't even have to do any analysis. All right. Now that we have an understanding of DHR and its history, let's get to the one thing that you all came here for. Got this in high school. Okay, I'm gonna leave it open. All right, ready? Do you have crush on someone in a Machine Girl t-shirt? Do you listen to Little Ugly Mane but want people to think that you listen to something else other than Little Ugly Mane? Are you a narcissistic drummer? Listen, finding new music is hard, and how can you claim to be cool if you don't have the time to go SoundCloud surfing? Well, look no further because I have the solution just for you. It's a playlist created by someone who has entirely way too much time on their hands. Listen, I believe that creating playlists is a skill worthy of a resume. It is my passion. It is my contribution to the human race. Now, instead of actually investing time into being perceived as cool, you can coast on my music taste. When I first heard digital hardcore, it was my first year of college. Before then, I was listening to mostly cattle decapitation and whatever Alice Glass was doing at the time. It was around that time I was struggling with either becoming a hipster twink or a goth twink. You can see how that all ended up. Then I heard If You're Into It, I'm Out of It by Christoph to Babylon. I was listening to a lot of Radiohead. I listened to a lot of them. What can I say? You know, boys get desperate too, okay? And Christoph to Babylon toured with Radiohead sometimes. And I listened to No Step and immediately wanted more. I then got more into the record label and started checking out Shizoo, who has some of the best stage presence that I've ever seen from a DJ. Within this playlist, you will find artists that were directly involved in DHR and others that aren't. These folks are taking the DHR sound and are modernizing it. You also may notice, if you're insufferable enough, that there are some breakcore tracks. Quick difference between the two is that breakcore is much more satirical and goofy in response to how needlessly edgy DHR was. With this in mind, breakcore is much less PC, for lack of a better word, and recently some producers have been under fire for their racist jokes in the past. Now you might be wondering, like I was, wow, a genre that has incredibly political roots and that is chaotic and filled with so much angsty nihilism reminds me of noise. And you'd be right. DHR does remind you, me, us, of noise. And hey, look at that. Noise legend and real-life Dark Souls boss Merzbow agrees with us as well. For those of you confused about noise being a genre, don't worry, we all are, and that will be a different video. It's the best playlist around, okay? We're doing the history of DHR so you can get kind of settled in this playlist, because when I look up a digital hardcore playlist, it's all Machine Girl. It's all I get it. I'm wearing a Machine Girl t-shirt. Machine Girl is classified as breakcore, and I don't believe that. I believe that they're more like synth punk instead of like digital hardcore. They do take digital hardcore elements, but honestly, they use elements of like every genre, and he's a great guy. So yeah, it's a great playlist. Great playlist. Digital hardcore has turned into one of my favorite genres / record labels. The frantic energy mixed in with radical leftist politics speaks to me on a level that few other genres can. However, I do have a couple of criticisms with Alec Empire and the record label as a whole. Recently, there have been more intentional discussions about how DJs are complicit in ripping off specifically black artists. Alec used funk samples to counteract the xenophobic attitudes towards German dance music, specifically the Winstons. Now, German trance was coming out during this time, and some right-wing neo-Nazis declared trance music as true German music. So Alec built his career off of sampling more leftist politics and trying to get away from that kind of music. However, the man who Alec built his entire career off of never saw a penny. Now, Alec has had many legal skirmishes with people using his music without his permission, such as the many Sony lawsuits, one leading to Anonymous being involved. And in many interviews, he has stated that he requires people to ask him for permission before sampling his work. Sounds easy enough, but it's not. This is a complicated issue. Is it different when a corporation takes your music versus some kid in his basement? Who is profiting the most off of another's expression? Was there an opportunity to ask permission in the first place? Electronic music is the most modern form of music, and this issue is extremely new. We have only started scratching the surface on how to fairly compensate artists when being sampled, or in the first place. But my question is this: would Alec Empire have commercial success without sampling others? Would he even be considered Alec Empire without these samples? Would his sound retain any political ethos? Personally, I think being an edgy anarchist was always in Alec's DNA. However, I do think that without those samples, his music would have a harder time connecting to its political roots, thus eroding the thing Alec cares most about, his reputation. You might call this nitpicking, and it is. Maybe that's why early 2000s breakcore was all about irreverence and often bigoted humor. It was a response to how serious DHR took themselves. Maybe Alec just lived too long and became the villain. No, I don't think Alec Empire grew up to be an authoritarian boomer grouch that has rescinded his rebellious past. No, I just think he's a boomer. And I think he knows it. He also seems kind of self-righteous in every single interview, constantly talking about the man and the establishment while getting kind of defensive whenever he's challenged. And maybe make him being straight edge might contribute to this effect. It also might be a symptom of losing one's friend to drug abuse. But, we all have that straight edge friend and goes to Imagine Dragons concerts and orders like a Sprite for like $10 because they feel weird without something in their hand, even though they have X's on their hand. And if you ever offer them a beer, they're going to be a dick about it. But I don't know. I just think he's a person who's not perfect, but incredibly talented. Look, the band's name, Atari Teenage Riot, kind of has an expiration date, but the ideals don't. It takes a younger generation to arrive in an unjust world without the soul-crushing experience of working a 9-to-5 to be fed up with the status quo. The principles of ATR and DHR may seem quixotic and over-idealistic, but it seems achievable when you swap out that doomer nihilism for angsty radical enthusiasm. The style of music pushes the listener to reimagine what is possible. I mean, before the early 90s, the craziest electronic music that we had was whatever demons Pauline Oliveros was conjuring. And you cannot dance to that. I'm done listening to this. Okay. So, I don't know if this is going to be like a recurring thing, but I have this hot take that might be kind of a long shot, but just bear with me. You've been here this long, so hopefully you'll indulge me.
I just stick and twist it!
Judith Halbertsam, in her book Queer Temporality and Postmodern Geographies, makes the claim that there is such a thing as queer time and queer space. I'm going to grossly oversimplify this book, but that basically means that queer people experience adolescence differently. Times are getting better, but the majority of queer people will grow up having to either hide or tamp down their sexuality to some extent. Think about hiding your celebrity crushes from your parents or making gay jokes with your friends in order to play along. You still rebel and play the role as the shitty teen, but once you are given the opportunity to build your own identity outside of your parents' house, you experience a second adolescence. Being queer is a lifestyle. So once you're actually allowed to be queer, you have a couple of trials to pass. You're confused, embarrassed, and frustrated about who you are and how you fit in this world. You're starting from ground zero. So it's up to you to find your clique, your found family, to show you the ropes of this exciting but marginalized way of life. And within that family, you grow. And there's a point where you basically become a teenager again. Okay, Jesus. So what's my point? My point is all these fancy words and are an extremely pretentious way to explain that I really like DHR. And I think Alec intended for me specifically to like it. I'm not saying if you like DHR, you're gay. However, I am saying that Alec is successful at the goal he has set out to accomplish. In an interview with Philip Kalowski of The Quietus, Alec talks about his production style. Quote, "A lot of music is programmed, so you have to think ahead and not just do trial and error, as they say. We don't want to be lucky. We want to aim for an idea, then push that into reality. I experienced this album through my own lens. When we listen to music, we are seeking a connection through sound. I connected to We All Die because it perfectly encapsulated how I felt being gender nonconforming in a world where my existence is constantly invalidated and undervalued. The constant screaming, the frantic breakbeats, seemingly without a set rhythm, the phrase, 'we all die,' just screams, 'you don't understand me.' This music challenges the listener to understand the appeal of it, but also makes fun of you if you don't like it. That sounds exactly how I was feeling when I realized that being queer comes at a cost. But how can a borderline instrumental track do this?" During an interview on one of Red Bull's masterclasses, please bring it back. Please bring it back. Please just bring them back. I want needed. Please, Red Bull, bring them back. Anyway, editing this video right now, and I got a little emotional about the death of the Red Bull masterclasses, justifiably. Didn't really explain what I was about to show you though. So, Alec in this interview is talking about how DJs from Detroit came to West Berlin, and how he had like a connection with that kind of music, even though he like never grew up in Detroit or understands like that. So, but it makes sense. Okay, it makes my point. So bring them back. Bring the Red Bull masterclasses back. Just fuck it. Just bring it back. Come on, come on.
Could answer so far. But there was something, for some reason, maybe there was this connection between how people in Detroit felt and how we felt in Berlin when we saw a system collapse in front of our eyes and everything changed. I mean, people now, maybe younger people, can't imagine what that feels like.
I do. I know, Alec. I know kind of what that feels like in some way, I guess. To answer this question of how instrumental music like insane techno is political is me. I'm the evidence that proves Alex succeeded in expressing his feelings of oppression. I never grew up in Berlin, and Alec didn't grow up in Detroit, but all of us express our feelings of disempowerment through techno. These clubs created a setting to cultivate community and potentially form a sort of family around crazy beats. And there are casts of people based on experience within this techno community. In any group that's not your actual family, think of who's the mom, who takes care of the new people in the crew and educates them on what's cool and what's not, who is new and keeps screwing up because they have the ignorance of a sophomoric teen. Queer temporality and DHR all aim to explain that humans thrive in community. They also signify how marginalized people resist against the status quo through bombastic expression. And through that expression, you connect with like-minded people, and that connection fills you with sustaining energy. Quote, "I don't think what we do is sonic shock to people. It is about the physical energy that the audience gets from the sound. That's a huge difference. When one is shocked, one doesn't react by moving and dancing. One would react with fear and would freeze." So why do I like DHR? Because I'm gay and I like dancing. All right, that's it. I hope you like the playlist. I hope you like the playlist. I hope you like the analysis. Let me know if you want more of these kinds of videos, if you want more like introductions to a genre with a playlist next to it, or I read a lot of weird books, so I could probably do some book reviews. I also have just a lot of records, and I like sampling them, so maybe we could do like pick a record, sample it, talk about the history of it and stuff. I'm O-triple-X-Y. Call me Oxy, call me Peter, as long as you call me. Make sure to do all the stuff, because I don't have any subscribers or any viewers or any likes. literally do anything. I don't know, interact with it. It's just spew your hate in the comments. I do not care as long as that keeps that engagement up. You know what I mean? Follow me if you want to. And yeah, I think that's it. Time to get fucking editing this. This is gonna be hard.